Hi, I'm Chris. This is Finding God at Work. Just a reminder that Finding God at Work isn't just a podcast, it's also an online course. Check it out at findinggodatwork.org. Our current series is Divine Disappointments, Facing Pain and Sorrow at Work. And today I'm really excited about the guest that we have with us who can introduce herself.
I'm Katie Walter Easley, your wife.
You are my wife. I'm so glad about that.
In case you didn't know.
In case I didn't know, yes. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
And for our listeners who may not know you, how would you describe yourself in, say, four words, four adjectives?
Quiet and contemplative. Is that one? Can
That's
that count
two.
as one?
That's sure. Bonus.
Nurse practitioner.
That's a noun.
Crazy cat lady.
Crazy is an adjective.
And married to you.
Okay, so I think we got quiet/contemplative, crazy, married, and does nurse count as an adjective in the phrase nurse practitioner?
Yes.
Something like that. Okay, I think that's a pretty on the spot self-description.
Also, not very good at following rules or counting.
You're really good at counting though. You have to count medications all the time. You're good at doing that. Yeah. Okay, so for listeners, in case you didn't hear our last episode, in the final few episodes of the series here, we're kind of doing a series within the series about the life of Joseph and sharing a little bit more about our story, Katie and my story as well, which is why Katie's joining us. So thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So first we're going to talk about the life of Joseph from Genesis, then we'll kind of pivot back and talk a little bit about me and Katie. So in our last episode, we talked about how Joseph in the book of Genesis had this dream, a couple different dreams that were given to him by God, since that he would eventually be exalted to a place of high honor. But he seemed to be pretty immature in the way he spoke about those dreams, and his brothers were not such a fan of him. That leads straight into today's passage, where Joseph's brothers decide to do something about their dislike of him. So this is starting in Genesis chapter 37, verse 17. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. They saw him from afar, and before he came near to them, they conspired against him to kill him. They said to one another, "Here comes this dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of the pits. Then we will say that a fierce animal has devoured him, and we will see what will become of his dreams." But when Reuben heard it, he rescued him out of their hands, saying, "Let us not take his life." And Reuben said to them, "Shed no blood. Throw him into the pit here in the wilderness, but do not lay a hand on him, that he might rescue him out of their hand to restore him to his father." So when Joseph came to his brothers, they stripped him of his robe, the robe of many colors that he wore, and they took him and threw him into a pit. The pit was empty, there was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat, and looking, they saw a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, with their camels bearing gum, balm, myrrh, and on their way to carry it down to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh." And his brothers listened to him. Okay, so hopefully you haven't had to face this kind of violence in your own family. We got some brother-to-brother tension, kind of getting to a boiling point here, where Joseph's brothers decide to kill him. Reuben really doesn't want him to get killed, kind of intervenes and says, "Let's not kill him." We can be thankful for that. But then their second best option, led by the brother Judah, is to sell him into slavery. So still not a great option. And this is what happens to Joseph. He's sold into slavery. He goes down to Egypt. His brothers tell his father Jacob that he had been mauled by a wild animal, and Jacob believes that story. And what happens when he gets to Egypt? Skipping ahead to chapter 39, starting in verse 1. Now Joseph had been brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, the captain of the guard, an Egyptian, had bought him from the Ishmaelites who had brought him down there. The Lord was with Joseph, and he became a successful man, and he was in the house of his Egyptian master. His master saw that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord caused all that he did to succeed in his hands. So Joseph found favor in his sight and attended him, and he made him overseer of his house and put him in charge of all that he had. Okay, so Joseph is in a really tough spot. He's sold into slavery, It doesn't look like this dream that he has is going to come true at all. But then, even in the middle of that, the Lord is with him, and he ends up coming to a place of influence, at least in his local context, in the house of this official named Potiphar. So we'll get a little bit further into the Joseph story in our next couple episodes. But for now, I just want to focus on how this is a really dramatic interruption to his dream. And he thought that he was going to come to this role of prominence, probably within the patriarchal context of living with his family, but instead his family turns against him, and he's isolated, he's alienated, he's literally enslaved. It doesn't look like the dream is going to go anywhere. And that's an experience that connects a little bit to my and Katie's story as well. So we got married in 2013. We were very young. Katie was not quite a teenager. She did turn 20 before the wedding. She was what? What was you turned 25 weeks before the wedding?
Something like that.
Something like that? 6 weeks, maybe?
So mature.
No, yeah.
20.
Yeah. So I did not marry a teenager, let the record show. But I was 21, and we were, well supported by our community as we jumped into marriage together, but also had a lot of growing up to do. And some of that growing up really hit in about year 3 of our marriage, so 2016. And some of that had to do with Katie's health. So Katie, could you just share a little bit about what you were going through at that time?
Yeah, well, I guess I would want to start with the fact that when we got married at the ripe old age of 20 and 21, we both thought that your dream was the way our life was going to go.
Yeah.
Like, we both assumed we would have kids, and you would be a pastor and a church planner, and it would just work out great.
Yes.
That's what we both thought.
I thought it would be a smooth road to ultimate fulfillment. Easy peasy. Got the wife part down, next kids and pastor, and well, it'll be peachy.
And neither of us had any idea what we were in for.
Yes.
So I guess where the difficulty started for me was finally finding out that I had endometriosis, which explained the dreadful monthly churning cycle of distress that was starting to take hold over my life and over yours as well.
Yeah,
it affected both of us. So really, a week of terrible hormonal depression and mental instability, followed by a week of horrific pain, followed by a week of just recovering and questioning all of my life choices, and maybe like 1 week a month, if we were lucky, of feeling sort of normal. And it just got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah. And during that 1 week, just being anxious for the cycle to start over again.
Yeah.
And going through it all over again.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a really debilitating time for you. It was also kind of a distressing time for me, as I kind of had to step into this caregiver role,
Yeah.
which I wasn't used to and hadn't anticipated.
Yeah, you really off-roaded your life to be present for me.
And that was hard for me. And some of that was that immaturity of assuming that I was going to have this easy peasy path to ministry. I was very involved in ministry activities. I think at one point, as your symptoms were getting worse, but before we really had our kind of come to Jesus conversation, I was involved in like something every night of the week, I think. Like I was in seminary, so I was doing seminary class on one night, and then I was in a small group on another night, and then I was at a Bible study at a different church on the third. And it was just like, I just like was not home very much.
You were very active.
Yes.
And I was very not.
Well, you were still in school yourself at the time.
Well, yeah.
You managed to work really hard even through that health crisis. But we did have this kind of come to Jesus moment where you basically said, like, Chris, you got to show up for me here. Like, you can't just be out doing ministry stuff all the time.
Was that our guacamole conversation?
That was the guacamole conversation. Yeah, we were supposed to go to the Cinco de Mayo party hosted by my boss, Steve, and we argued on the way there. We were walking, and it was such a bad argument, we just walked home and never went to the party.
But we were bringing guacamole.
But yes, Katie had made delicious guacamole, and she was carrying it, and I was carrying the El Milagro, fame is in the name and quality is in the product, tortilla chips, while we had this messy fight. Yeah. Yeah. So that was a really important conversation. Even though it was messy, it did kind of lead to a reevaluation of all the ministry stuff that I was engaged in. And I had to grow up a lot in terms of learning how to set boundaries and how to be present to you and how to realize that being present to you was just as important, actually more important than any of the other ministry stuff that I was doing. But at the same time, you were having a really hard time with church community in the middle of that crisis too.
Yeah, well, it's all kind of wrapped up in several things. So, I mean, we thought it was bad enough with the health crisis, but it got worse because amidst all that distress, I reached for what was familiar, which was an eating disorder that I had developed when I was a teenager. Never really got it treated, never really sought help for it. And so when you're in distress, you reach for the things you know. And that was really what I knew to do at that moment. And it became clear pretty soon that if we didn't get intervention, this was a pattern that would kill me with time. So, got treatment for eating disorder recovery, which was its own brand of intense. And then in the midst of all that, it just really, I don't know, having trouble with all of the relationships in my life, with people, with God.
Yeah, yeah, and it was a really intense season in terms of the number of times you went through different treatment programs. You had several rounds of like outpatient intensive therapy, which was really helpful.
Yeah, it was one of the hardest things I have ever done, and it was 500% worth it. Because really what you're doing, if you're recovering from something like an eating disorder or any other addictive pattern, is you are dismantling one destructive coping mechanism and then gradually relearning healthy ways to cope with your life and everything. And that's something that can only come through lots of tedious practice in the face of suffering.
And there really was a lot of pain in that process. It was a healing process, but also it was really hard to go through for you and for me when I'm coming alongside you. I think about like it's almost like a bone that had healed the wrong way and then had to be broken so that it could heal again.
Yeah, what was that like for you?
Well, I think it was hard for me because not just to see you in pain and to care about you and what you were going through, but also to feel like my grand plan for life was falling apart, right? Like, because your condition, the physical condition was gynecological. We weren't getting pregnant. It didn't seem like we were going to have kids as soon as I had thought.
Yeah, that became not on the top of our goal list.
Right. Yeah, because we were just focused on like, okay, how do we stabilize Katie? How do we help her get to a place of health? But then as you kind of went through that, like breaking the bone to reset it process with all of your coping mechanisms, part of what broke there was your way of being present in the church. Like before you had a way of kind of showing up at church, but how would you describe that earlier version of your relationship with the church?
You know, I think it was very much like the conditions under which we got married. You know, we thought it was peachy and it worked and this is the way it was going to be and it made sense. And I guess radically deconstructing the way I related to life included really hitting a hard reset on the way I related to the church and to important people in my life. And realizing that I had never really had a stable and solid connection with the church ever to begin with.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I had nothing to support me, nothing to grab onto as I was flailing in this confusion.
And in future episodes, we'll get to kind of the long-term journey of what came out of that. But at the time, the way I perceived that was just like Katie didn't know how to be at church anymore.
Well, that was true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I had no sense of there being a different version or option or opportunity in the future. I just felt like it was like sand running through my fingers. Like, oh my gosh, I'm not having kids. And now my wife doesn't even like the church. And what does that mean for me? It was a really, really hard season. So for for me, especially in terms of my vocation, I think for you, in some ways, with your whole life, it was like the death of a dream. It was a sense of like things are just falling apart around us and we have no idea where they're going to go.
Yeah, I think I was so unstable that I didn't really necessarily have a dream at that point. So it just felt like everything was falling apart.
Yeah.
In some ways, maybe easier for me to just live in the now. Whereas you, on the other hand, had these dearly held dreams and aspirations that were getting pushed farther and farther away.
Yeah. Yeah. So in a way, that was our journey through the desert into Egypt and Potiphar's household. But the one thing I do want to add is just like the Lord being with Joseph in Potiphar's household, I remember those years and I see so many good things that happened in those years, even though they were so hard. Like good things in your life, you learning to name what was going on for you emotionally.
Like figuring out emotions.
Yes.
And the mind-blowing fact that you can actually experience two emotions at the same time, like that was revolutionary.
Yeah. And for me also, even though it was a season of vocational crisis, I was really well cared for in that season by our church. And I still was able to be present at church even while you were still figuring out what that looked like.
Well, I'm so thankful for that because they were able to be there for you when I was not.
Yeah.
I mean, I really wasn't the person you had married. And you stuck it out with me.
Yeah. And I stuck it out because I had a community around me helping me figure out how to love you and how to care for myself and my sense of priorities better in terms of caring for my soul before the Lord, caring for our marriage, and then thinking about, okay, what's the expression of ministry that God's giving us in this season? So
I would just put it as you loved me. Like that's a pretty like talky way of explaining it all.
well,
you loved me.
It is, yeah. Well, yeah, and yeah,
still do,
and I still do.
Yeah,
I love you a lot. So that's okay. That's we gotta wrap up our podcast. We're hitting our time here, but we are gonna continue this conversation in the next couple episodes. So I'm just gonna close out in prayer, like I normally do. Lord Jesus, thank you for this chance to talk about what you've done through all the twists and turns of Katie and my journey. I pray that for any listeners where this resonates with some point of what you're doing in their lives, that you would be with them, just like you were with Joseph, even in Egypt, that you would prosper them in their efforts, that you would be faithful to them. Jesus, do your work in us as we do our work with you. Amen.
Thanks for listening. Finding God at Work is a production of Mission Central, a ministry based in Aurora, Illinois, dedicated to forming Christians for mission in everyday life. You can subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to this episode to get 10 minutes of teaching on faith and work every Tuesday and Thursday. To get resources to go deeper with each podcast series, read our blog, and get info about upcoming courses on faith in the workplace, go to our website, missioncentral.church.